In less than 24 hours, the most mysterious traveler ever detected, 3I Atlas, will attempt something no interstellar object has ever dared. It will reach its point of maximum velocity, maximum radiation, and maximum risk, and do it completely unseen. Behind the Sun, beyond every telescope's reach, an object from another star system is about to perform a maneuver that defies prediction. No light, no signal, no data, just silence. And a question that says, spreading through every observatory on Earth, what is it doing while we can see it? This isn't a comet playing by cosmic rules. This is a visitor entering the one region of the solar system where physics itself becomes a stage with no audience. For the next several weeks, every instrument will go blind, every model will fail, and the universe will close its curtain. When 3I Atlas re-emerges, the sky might not look the same. Beat of silence, stay with me. Because what happens next could rewrite what we think interstellar really means.
Welcome. You are watching Whisper Science. Make sure to subscribe and join us for more amazing science content. Now, let's move back to the video.
In less than 72 hours, the most detailed planet ever observed outside our solar system will vanish. Not explode, not dim. Simply disappear. From every telescope, every spectrograph, every eye turned toward the stars. For the past 2 years, astronomers have been watching a world called Kepler 186f, a small Earth-sized planet orbiting a red dwarf star 490 light-years away in the constellation Cygnus. It was discovered in the previous decade, catalogued, studied, even used in school textbooks as proof that Earth-like planets were common. It was a quiet success story, the kind of steady, unglamorous science that moves humanity forward one decimal place at a time. Then, one night in late July 2033, something changed. A graduate research team at the Cerro Paranal Observatory in Chile noticed that during a routine transit, the moment when the planet crosses in front of its star and slightly dims its light, the dip in brightness never came. The star shone uninterrupted. The planet, it seemed, had missed its cue. At first, nobody cared. Planets can be hard to time precisely. Their orbits shift. Stellar activity can mimic or mask transits. But as the days passed and follow-up observations piled in from observatories around the world, a pattern emerged. The planet's signature was gone. By August, the absence was undeniable. The European Space Agency's aerial telescope confirmed no transit, no infrared shadow, no reflected light at all. NASA's Tesserae reported the same. Even JWST, pointed directly at Kepler 186f's coordinates, detected nothing but the steady heartbeat of its host star. The planet that had been one of the most observed in history had somehow vanished. Official statements were careful. Anomalous observation. Potential instrumentation discrepancy. But in private, researchers were uneasy. Planets don't vanish. Not in the silence of deep space. Not without leaving traces. Some suggested a colossal impact event. Perhaps an unseen asteroid swarm or rogue body had pulverized the planet, scattering debris too faint to detect. Others whispered about an observational illusion. Maybe the star had flared, masking the orbit. Maybe the planet had moved behind the star due to orbital precession. Maybe data pipelines were corrupted. Maybe. But the word maybe wears thin when global instruments agree. When every telescope from Hawaii to the Atacama to the orbital platforms returns the same null result, maybe starts to sound like denial. That's where I come in. I'm not an astronomer. I'm a documentarian. My job is to follow stories when they begin to unravel. I've spent the past 6 months chasing rumors of things that shouldn't happen. An asteroid that decelerated unexpectedly, a neutrino burst that lasted too long, a signal that repeated once and never again. The disappearance of a planet seemed like the natural next chapter. I flew to the Atacama the week the news broke, hoping to capture interviews before the narrative hardened. The desert was cold, the sky impossibly clear. Observatories dotted the horizon like gleaming sentinels. Inside, scientists moved with the quiet urgency of people who know the world is watching, but don't yet know what they're looking at. On the monitors, Kepler 186's star shimmered, steady, ordinary, ancient. Its planetary companion was a phantom. Dr. Lena Verma, one of the lead photometrists, told me something she hadn't said on record. It is as if the planet chose to leave during the one window when our instruments couldn't verify what it was doing. It slipped between our frames. I asked what she meant. She pulled up the last clean data sequence, a smooth, predictable light curve with the planet's signature clearly visible. Then the next one, flat. The time gap between them was 16 hours. 16 hours unobserved because of a maintenance cycle on a relay satellite. 16 hours in which a world could apparently cease to exist. The internet erupted. Hashtags trended, and lost world, a ghost planet, Kepler gone. Conspiracy channels latched onto the mystery. Some claimed it was proof of advanced civilizations erasing evidence. Others suggested human error, a cover-up or cosmic coincidence. But beneath the noise, one fact held steady. The coordinates where Kepler 186f should be showed nothing. Radio astronomers tried to listen for reflected emissions. Nothing. Infrared arrays hunted for residual heat. Silence. Even gravitational measurements failed to reveal a wobble in the star's motion. It was as though the planet had never existed. That's impossible, of course. Mass leaves fingerprints. A missing planet would alter the star's balance. Yet even that balance seemed corrected, as if the star had adjusted, smoothing its own record. By September, the scientific community divided into camps. One insisted on natural explanations, orbital migration, data corruption, or a rare alignment that masked the planet temporarily. The other, smaller, quieter, whispered that something unprecedented had happened, something no model could contain. Theories multiplied. Some proposed a gravitational lensing event, a cosmic coincidence where another object, S-gravity, bent light in just the right way to hide the planet temporarily. Others invoked quantum decoherence, suggesting the planet existed in a superposition until observation collapsed its probability out of our timeline. That last one belonged more to philosophers than physicists. But desperation breeds creativity. Governments took notice. Space agencies scheduled emergency coordination calls. The United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs issued a brief statement urging patience and scientific rigor. It read like a prayer for order. Behind closed doors, leaked memos revealed concerns about data authenticity, funding impacts, even public morale. Losing a planet, it turns out, has psychological consequences, because this isn't just about Kepler 186f. If one world can vanish, any world can. In late October, a pattern began to surface. Amateur astronomers monitoring other systems reported tiny discrepancies, minute timing shifts, fractional dimming differences. Nothing conclusive, but enough to stir unease. Were we witnessing a singular anomaly or the beginning of a broader phenomenon? No one could say. All we knew was that a confirmed Earth-sized planet, one that had reflected sunlight, absorbed radiation, exhibited seasons and atmosphere, was no longer detectable by any means known to science. Somewhere between mathematics and mystery, it had crossed a threshold we didn't know existed. Tonight, as I record this narration from the control room of the Paranal Array, a storm rolls silently across the desert plateau. Monitors flicker. The starfield drifts in perfect indifference. We aim our instruments toward the coordinates one more time, hoping for a flicker, a shadow. any hint that the planet still circles its sun. But the readings are flat. Just the heartbeat of a lonely star pulsing through the void. When I ask Dr. Verma what she thinks happened, she answers with the kind of honesty that ends debates. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not done. The signal log shows a scheduled observation window opening in 48 hours. A new satellite alignment will give us another chance to look. If the planet's truly gone, we'll know. If it's hidden, we might glimpse movement in the noise. Either way, something waits on the other side of that silence. The countdown begins again. And somewhere out there, a world we once knew as real is deciding whether it wants to be seen. They're calling it the silence arc. That's the term circulating among astronomers now, a poetic phrase for something no one understands. It describes the strange hush that settled over Kepler-186's entire neighborhood, not just the missing planet, but the space around it. When the next observation window opened, every instrument on Earth and in orbit turned toward that faint red dwarf, hoping to catch even the faintest echo of what had been there before. Instead, they found nothing. No dust, no debris, no trace of the planet's thermal signature. The region where Kepler-186f had orbited, a clean, silent ellipse carved in starlight, was blank. Dr. Verma sent me the raw data before the embargo locked it down. The spectrographic readings looked wrong in a way that made my stomach tighten. A narrow dip in intensity where the planet should have transited was now a flat line. The star's spectrum itself had changed, subtly, almost imperceptibly, but consistently across every instrument. It wasn't brighter or dimmer, it was smoother, as if something had gently erased the noise. Astronomers began to wonder if they were staring at an edited frame of the universe. Within days, the conversation spread beyond observatories. The public wanted answers. News anchors called it the first confirmed planetary disappearance. Memes exploded. Talk shows debated whether it was proof of alien intervention, a simulation glitch, or a cosmic coincidence. Politicians demanded transparency, and through it all, scientists tried to hold the line between reason and awe. But even reason has limits. On August 14th, the Parker Array, an experimental optical interferometer network stretching across 3 continents, picked up a faint phase distortion in the light from Kepler-186. The distortion wasn't random. It pulsed, evenly spaced, like a heartbeat, every 16 hours. At first they thought it was equipment vibration, thermal expansion, any number of mundane effects. But when independent teams across the world reported the exact same pattern, the coincidence became too perfect to ignore. A rhythm, embedded in starlight, repeating in the same cadence that the planet's final observation had vanished. A few researchers began calling it the planetary echo. No one dared to use the word signal yet. When I returned to the Atacama in late August, the observatory grounds had changed. Armed guards now monitored entry points. The air buzzed with rumor. I caught fragments of conversation, mentions of classified briefings, encrypted data packets, emergency teleconferences between NASA, ESA, and the Chinese Space Administration. Something was escalating. That night, Dr. Verma met me outside the facility, away from cameras and microphones. Her eyes were tired, her voice brittle. She told me the echo wasn't just rhythmic, it was structured. 4 distinct amplitude variations, she said, like a repeating code, not random noise. Something is modulating the star's light. I asked if she believed it was artificial. She hesitated. I don't believe anything yet, but it's organized, and organization demands a cause. Meanwhile, half a world away, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, a small AI division had started analyzing the same data. They'd trained a deep learning model to detect non-natural periodicity, the kind of signature that might suggest either unknown astrophysics or theoretically intelligence. The model flagged the Kepler 186 data as anomalous with 99.8% confidence. The report was immediately sealed. Leaked slides appeared online within hours. Grainy, low-resolution screenshots of a neural network's output graph. The words, "pattern consistent with structured emission," burned across the internet like a flare in darkness. That was the night public trust fractured. If a planet could vanish and its star begin whispering in code, what else might we have missed? Government scrambled to control the narrative. The official line shifted again, instrument error. But in private, agencies poured funding into emergency observation programs. 2 new satellites were retasked overnight, one infrared, one gravitational, both aimed at Kepler 186. Whatever was happening, no one wanted to miss the next frame. By September, the phenomenon deepened. Radio astronomers began detecting faint microwave bursts, too weak for communication, too regular for random noise. Each burst coincided precisely with the optical pulse in the star's light curve. Optical, radio, infrared, all pulsing together every 16 hours, synchronized across the electromagnetic spectrum. But there was something stranger. Each pulse wasn't identical. Its duration varied by fractions of a second, following a pattern that, when plotted, resembled an orbital map, as if the missing planet S trajectory was being written in time rather than space. Theorists called it spatial encoding. One paper, later withdrawn under political pressure, proposed that the planet hadn't vanished at all. It had transitioned into a non-visible state, perhaps compressed by gravitational lensing or quantum effects. Its orbit now translated into an informational shadow. It sounded like science fiction, but so did a planet disappearing. Then came the glitch in the background radiation. The European Cosmic Microwave Observatory, designed to map relic radiation from the Big Bang, noticed something off in its calibration data. A faint, localized void in the cosmic microwave background, perfectly aligned with Kepler 186's coordinates. The universe itself seemed to have a hole where the planet had been. No one could explain how a planetary-scale event could distort the microwave background. The energy required was astronomical, literally beyond comprehension. Yet the void was there, and it was expanding. Only slightly, a fraction of a degree per month, but measurable. At the United Nations Astrophysical Summit in Geneva, delegates debated whether to classify the event as a cosmic hazard. If the void grew, it might represent an unknown physical phenomenon, a tear in space-time, or a transient bubble of altered physics. Panic wasn't the word they used, but you could hear it in the silences between speeches. In early October, an emergency broadcast leaked from the Lunar Relay Network, a deep space monitoring array positioned on the Moon, AS far side. It was a raw data transmission accidentally left unsecured for 37 seconds. In that window, amateur astronomers intercepted fragments of the Kepler feed. Hidden in the noise was something that shouldn't exist, a brief return of the planetary signal. Not the planet itself, but the afterimage of one. The shadow crossing the star's face, lasting just 2 milliseconds. Far too fast for an orbit, but perfectly shaped, perfectly defined. When processed, it looked like a flicker of a planet in motion, appearing, then gone again. Like an echo of existence replayed once before fading for good. Dr. Verma sent me a message that night. If the planet is gone, why does its light still remember it? Since then, astronomers have been watching, waiting, recalibrating every theory they thought they understood. Some believe we were witnessing a relativistic mirage, a distortion caused by unknown gravitational phenomena near the star. Others think we've discovered a new class of object entirely, a phase-shifted world, oscillating between states of visibility. But a few, the bold or the reckless, are whispering something more radical, that Kepler 186f didn't disappear at all. It moved, not within its own system, but out of it. They point to the synchronized pulses, the expanding void, the absence of debris, all signs of controlled transition, not destruction. In that view, the vanishing planet isn't a victim of physics. It's a traveler. If that's true, the implications are staggering, because it means we're not just observing a natural event, we're watching a decision. As the second month of silence closes, all eyes turn back toward that quiet red star. The next alignment cycle approaches. One more chance to measure, to glimpse, to understand what the universe just erased. Dr. Verma has stopped sleeping. I've started dreaming of worlds that blink in and out of existence like thoughts. And somewhere in the empty orbit where Kepler 186f used to shine, the silence arcs on, pulsing, patient, waiting for us to ask the right question. By November 2033, the silence had begun to spread. What started as a single vanished world was now casting shadows across other star systems. At first, it was subtle, barely a whisper in the data. Astronomers scanning the TRAPPIST-1 system noticed micro-irregularities in the transit timing of its inner planets. Each orbit arrived a few seconds late, then a few more. Small, cumulative deviations that didn't fit gravitational models. Then the light curves began to blur. One by one, faint distortions appeared in the starlight from neighboring systems. Tiny hiccups that mirrored the same 16-hour rhythm first seen in Kepler 186. Different stars, different distances, same pulse. They called it the echo network. I was in Geneva when the data went public. The press hall was packed, the air thick with unease. A projection of the Milky Way spun on the wall behind the speakers. Red dots bloomed across it like a rash, each marking a system now infected by the anomaly. In less than 2 months, 11 stars, spanning 400 light-years, had begun pulsing in near-perfect unison. "This isn't coincidence," Dr. Verma whispered to me afterward. "Something is linking them. Something faster than light or older than time." Governments tried to downplay it. The European Space Agency issued a calm, measured statement. No evidence of threat to Earth. But that reassurance rang hollow. People weren't afraid of invasion. They were afraid of not knowing what kind of event the universe itself could synchronize. On social media, the rumor mill turned apocalyptic. Some saw it as proof of a cosmic communication grid, planets sending messages through stellar modulation. Others believed it was the early phase of collapse, the universe erasing redundant matter like corrupted data. In the chaos, new voices emerged. Physicists, philosophers, theologians. Each offered explanations that sounded less like science and more like scripture. Meanwhile, the data kept coming. The Parker Array refined its readings. The 16-hour pulse wasn't perfectly stable. It drifted by exactly 42 seconds every cycle. That drift formed a spiral when plotted in 4 dimensions of phase space, a logarithmic curve trending toward a singular point in the constellation Lyra, a destination. When the team announced this at the International Astronomy Congress, the room went silent. If the pattern had a destination, it implied direction. If it had direction, it implied intent. Within a week, observatories worldwide were retasked to watch Lyra. Nothing unusual appeared, just the familiar scatter of stars, nebulae, and distant dust. But instruments sensitive to gravitational lensing began to record subtle curvatures in space-time itself, as if something massive but invisible was moving through the interstellar medium. Theorists called it a transit wave. Not matter, not energy. A motion of absence, propagating like a ripple where worlds once were. By mid-November, another planet disappeared. Kepler 442b, another Earth-sized world, another red dwarf system. Its disappearance mirrored Kepler 186f's exactly. A clean erasure, no debris, no gravitational disturbance, and the same rhythmic pulse left in its wake. Two worlds gone, two notes in a growing cosmic symphony. I flew back to the Atacama to interview Verma again. She was different now, less scientist, more witness. Her office was dark except for the glow of monitors looping endless light curves. She barely looked up when I entered. "It's geometric," she said quietly. "Every vanished planet forms a perfect alignment when plotted in galactic coordinates. A straight line stretching across interstellar space." She showed me the map. 7 vanished bodies, each separated by hundreds of light years, all connected by a single line. The line intersected a faint X-ray source catalogued decades ago, a dormant stellar remnant in Lyra known as HD 135497, a dead star. Except it wasn't dead anymore. Satellite spectrometers began registering spikes in X-ray flux from that region, short, controlled bursts that matched the 16-hour rhythm of the pulses elsewhere. Whatever was happening across the galaxy was converging on that single point. Someone leaked the internal memo from ESA's High-Energy Astrophysics Division. The subject line read, "Convergence event, estimated 49 days." That was when the countdown began. News networks ran graphics of a glowing point in Lyra, calling it the cosmic rendezvous. Panic crept into markets. Religion found revival. People looked up at the night sky and tried to imagine a hand drawing lines between the stars. Yet amid the hysteria, something quieter unfolded. A small research station in Antarctica, operating the sub-millimeter array, detected faint gravitational ripples that matched the convergence pattern. The amplitude was minuscule, almost quantum, but the signal carried phase coherence impossible for random background noise. The pattern wasn't just pulsing, it was speaking. Mathematicians translated the rhythm into binary. The result, when converted to an image grid, produced a spiral of nested circles, reminiscent of orbital mechanics, but subtly distorted. At the center, a void. The interpretation divided the community. Some said it was noise, an artifact of overprocessing. Others insisted it was the first artificial cosmological structure ever observed. A message, not meant for us but too large to ignore. Dr. Verma looked at it for a long time before she spoke. "It's not coming toward us," she said. "It's calling us to follow." Her words lingered like static. Around that time, the Lagrange III observatory, positioned far beyond the Moon, recorded an unexplained mass displacement in the outer solar system, an invisible object roughly the size of a small moon crossing between Saturn and Uranus. It emitted no light, reflected no radar, and moved with impossible precision. Some thought it was a sensor glitch. Others whispered that something had answered the call from Lyra. Every vanished world, every pulse, every echo, linked through a chain of events stretching across light years, converging on a single gravitational scar. The line from Kepler 186f to HD 135497 now extended through us. Earth lay directly on that trajectory. When I asked Verma what that meant, she only said, "It means we're next in line to listen or to vanish." The governments issued new protocols for deep space monitoring. A network of satellites named Aegis was rushed into operation. 20 synchronized platforms designed to triangulate anomalies across the electromagnetic spectrum. Their mission: detect any shift in Earth's gravitational balance, any sign that our planet's orbital fingerprint was changing. People laughed at first. Then one of the Aegis units went offline. Its final transmission was a single line of code, a timestamp, and 6 digits, 1642. The same rhythm, the same pulse, Somewhere in the dark between stars, something was counting. The next observation window opens in 6 days. If the pattern holds, the next disappearance will occur on December the 2nd at exactly 16 Sun Universal Time. No one knows which star it will claim. Dr. Verma believes it's a wave front, each event closer than the last, moving inward through the galactic arm like an invisible tide. And if that's true, the tide is rising. The silence that began with one missing planet is now a network of absence, a pattern spreading through the cosmos, erasing matter with surgical precision and leaving only rhythm behind. Maybe it's a signal. Maybe it's physics we don't yet comprehend. Or maybe it's a door opening one world at a time. We don't know which side of it we stand on. The sky was never supposed to feel personal. It was supposed to be distant, an abstract backdrop, a canvas of light that made humanity feel small and safe. But by late November 2033, the stars had begun to look back. For weeks, the world had been watching the countdown to December 2nd, the predicted moment of the next disappearance. At first, the date meant nothing more than another headline. Then telescopes began to twitch, satellites began to hum, and something in the rhythm of space itself seemed to hold its breath. Across observatories, instruments were recalibrated to the same metronome. A 16-hour pulse, the heartbeat of a phenomenon moving steadily toward us. The pulse was now detectable not just in light, but in gravity. Subtle fluctuations, tiny rhythmic distortions in space-time itself, were registering across detectors on Earth, the Moon, and Mars. It was as if the universe had begun to tap on our windows. The data came first from Aegis 4, one of the orbital detectors stationed between Earth and the Moon. Its sensors recorded a repeating microlensing effect on distant starlight. Background stars brightened and dimmed, fractionally, at intervals matching the pulse. Then Aegis 9, orbiting near Mars, confirmed the same pattern. The wave was approaching at 1,000th the speed of light, slow for light, but impossibly fast for matter. Whatever was coming wasn't a physical object. It was an absence traveling like a frontier. When I interviewed Dr. Verma for the global feed, she seemed calmer than before, like someone who had finally accepted that control was gone. The data suggest it's a curvature wave, she said. Not energy, not mass. A transition in the geometry of reality itself. Think of it as space-time changing its mind. Her explanation was poetic, but the implications were devastating. If space-time could change its rules locally, erase planets, rewrite orbital balances, then everything we understood about stability was provisional. The constants of the universe were becoming variables. Governments convened emergency sessions. The United States Astrophysical Defense Initiative, a name that sounded fictional even as it became real, began coordinating with European and Asian space agencies. The first planetary defense protocols in history, not aimed at asteroids, were enacted. You can't launch missiles at geometry, but you can point instruments at it and hope to understand before it arrives. On social media, people began counting the pulse in real time. Millions of phones synchronized to cosmic rhythm. Every 16 hours, timelines filled with silence. People paused their lives as if waiting for the next note in a song that might end everything. Then at 16:00 UTC on December 2nd, the next world vanished. This time, it wasn't hundreds of light years away. It was 41. The exoplanet Proxima Centauri b, our nearest known neighbor, the one always discussed as potentially habitable, simply ceased to exist. 2. The Proxima star, a small red ember visible only through telescopes, flickered once, just once, and then stabilized, cleaner than before. No debris, no flare, just subtraction. Humanity had lost its nearest mirror. The implications hit like a wave of cold air. Every news outlet in the world carried the same headline. Proxima b gone. For the first time, the cosmic event was no longer a remote curiosity. It was local. Astronomers described it as standing on a beach and seeing the tide pull suddenly, revealing dark sand where water should be. The wave was on its way. Dr. Verma's face appeared on screens worldwide, explaining what no one truly understood. "The phenomenon is not destroying," she said carefully. "It's transitioning. We're detecting quantum coherence across systems that have never interacted. It's as if reality itself is synchronizing." That word, synchronizing, became a cultural virus. Religious groups embraced it. Scientists recoiled from it. But for ordinary people, it made eerie sense. The stars were aligning, literally and figuratively, and Earth was next in line. The following week, strange events began closer to home. The Voyager 1 probe, still transmitting faint data from the edge of interstellar space, sent a final burst of telemetry before falling silent. Its last packet contained corrupted coordinates, showing it had suddenly moved 2/10 of a light day closer to the Sun. Impossible, but verified across 3 receiving stations. It was as if space between Voyager and home had shortened, like fabric shrinking in heat. Then Voyager 2 disappeared completely. The event logs from NASA's Deep Space Network described an abrupt loss of signal at the exact moment of the next pulse. The timing was perfect. The wave front had touched our doorstep. At that point, denial was over. Global emergency broadcasts began instructing citizens to expect temporary communication blackouts. People stocked up on food, water, batteries, not because of an official order, but because something primal in them understood that when the universe starts rewriting itself, candles might be safer than satellites. Meanwhile, in the mountains of Chile, Verma's team kept watching. They noticed that before each disappearance, there was a pattern of turbulence in the starlight, a shimmering distortion that looked like a heat mirage. For Proxima b, that shimmer had appeared exactly 32 hours before the event. For Voyager 2, 16. If that trend held, they could predict when the next shimmer, our shimmer, would arrive. It came on December 8th. Every telescope on Earth recorded it simultaneously. The stars near the southern horizon began to dance, their positions wavering by milliseconds like reflections on rippling water. Even naked-eye observers noticed strange halos around bright stars. The shimmer lasted 3 hours, then stopped. No one slept that night. When dawn came, something new appeared in the sky, subtle but unmistakable. A faint band of light arcing from east to west, visible even against the daylight. It wasn't the aurora. It was too structured, too deliberate. Satellites above the atmosphere reported no corresponding emissions. The band wasn't in the atmosphere at all. It was beyond it. Mathematical models suggested it was a standing wave in the interplanetary magnetic field, an electromagnetic ripple frozen in place, like a scar in the sky. The first permanent mark of the approaching phenomenon. Verma called it the horizon line. That name stuck because when night returned, the band glowed brighter, a thin curve of pale silver cutting across the stars like the edge of a curtain. It tracked with the solar wind, flexing, shimmering, but never breaking. In the following days, instruments detected low-frequency radio emissions emanating from the band, structured pulses forming harmonic overtones of the original 16-hour rhythm. The signal was everywhere now, woven into every frequency we could measure. One morning, while I was recording narration in the observatory control room, a soft chime interrupted the hum of machinery. The data feed from Aegis 7 had gone live again after being offline for weeks. Its final packet contained a phrase encoded in binary amplitude modulation, 16 symbols repeated 3 times. Translated into English, it read, "Stand by for realignment." No one could agree whether it was noise, coincidence, or a cosmic command. But when the message hit public channels, The world reacted as one might to prophecy. Some prayed, some partied, some pointed telescopes at the horizon line and waited for the sky to blink. December 15th, the date every physicist now circled in dread. The day the pulse alignment would place Earth directly at the center of the expanding pattern. No one knew if the planet would vanish like the others, or if something different would happen. Some believed we'd transition, move to wherever the others had gone. Others thought we'd simply stop existing. Dr. Verma didn't believe either. "The pattern isn't ending," she said. "It's beginning. These aren't disappearances, they're invitations." She looked at the horizon line on her monitor, its silver arc glimmering against the void, and whispered, "Maybe they're building something, a network of synchronized worlds, and we're about to join." The thought chilled me, because if she was right, we weren't losing our place in the universe. We were being folded into something larger. The question was whether we'd survive the fold. By mid-December 2033, the world had split into two kinds of silence, one in the sky and one in the streets. Everywhere I went, from cities flooded with screens to the isolated deserts where observatories hummed in thin air, the same feeling hung over people, a stillness that wasn't at peace but anticipation. The planet was waiting for something it couldn't name. The horizon line, that shimmering arc of silver light, now spanned the entire sky. It had grown sharper, almost geometric, slicing through constellations with perfect curvature. It wasn't static. It pulsed faintly, synchronized with the 16-hour rhythm now detectable in everything from seismic readings to heart monitors. Even biological systems seemed to be responding. Hospitals reported strange coincidences, heartbeats syncing briefly across intensive care units at the exact moment of each cosmic pulse. Power grids hummed in resonance. The Earth itself began to vibrate at subsonic frequencies that made oceans ripple imperceptibly. No one could say if it was psychological contagion or physics rewriting physiology. The media called it the alignment syndrome. Doctors called it stress. But the numbers didn't lie. Every 16 hours, global instruments recorded a measurable uptick in electromagnetic coherence. The planet was, in a sense, tuning itself, and the frequency was rising. Dr. Verma's latest data from the Atacama Array showed the pulse accelerating, its interval shrinking by fractions of a second each cycle. A countdown hidden inside a countdown. Whatever was coming wasn't waiting for us. It was arriving on schedule. Governments around the world initiated continuity protocols. Underground data vaults were sealed. Massive backups of genetic libraries and digital archives were transmitted to lunar storage sites. If humanity vanished, something of us would remain, our blueprint, our voice an echo in the dark. In Geneva, the United Nations convened the Final Observation Assembly, a coalition of scientists, philosophers, and theologians tasked with interpreting the event. I attended as a documentarian, but the line between witness and participant had dissolved months ago. The assembly met in a soundproof hall with a live projection of the horizon line overhead. Its silver arc bisected the ceiling like a blade. Dr. Verma stood at the podium, her voice calm, deliberate as she presented her final model. "The phenomenon is no longer localized," she said. "The curvature wave has entered our solar neighborhood. Its structure is fractal, nested within itself. Each vanished planet represents a node in a larger topology. We're not observing destruction, we're observing construction." She displayed the simulation on the main screen, a holographic lattice stretching through space like a vast glowing web. Each missing world glowed at an intersection point. In the center of the lattice, right where Earth was projected to align, was a blank sphere. "That," she said quietly, "is what comes next." The room stayed silent for nearly a minute. Then, someone asked the question no one wanted to voice. Is it intelligent? Verma looked up at the projection. It behaves like intention. That's as far as science can take us. Outside, the world was unraveling. Stock markets had crashed. Communication satellites flickered in and out of operation. People stopped going to work. Churches overflowed. Others gathered in parks and rooftops just to watch the sky, to be present for whatever history would write next. And then, on December 14th, one day before predicted alignment, the first local distortions began. In northern Norway, a fishing crew reported seeing the stars bend overhead like reflections on water. Their compasses spun. GPS went blank. In Tokyo, skyscrapers flickered briefly, as if reality itself had glitched, their reflections appearing in the wrong direction before snapping back. And across the equatorial Pacific, a faint ring of light appeared around the moon, pulsing in sync with the cosmic rhythm. The event was no longer out there. It was here. That night, I walked outside the Atacama Array Control Center. The desert wind was cold, the stars too bright. The horizon line cut across the heavens like a scar of light. And then, for the first time, it moved. It tilted. Slowly, deliberately, the arc shifted position, aligning perfectly with the ecliptic, the plane of our solar system. The scientists inside scrambled to recalibrate their instruments. The line wasn't following celestial mechanics. It was aiming. Verma joined me outside. She whispered, "It's locking on." Over the next few hours, the wavefront stabilized. Every telescope confirmed it. The distortion was converging toward the Sun-Earth Lagrange point, L1, the gravitational balance directly between us and the Sun. The same spot where Aegis IV had been stationed before it went offline. We had thought Aegis IV was lost, but its telemetry suddenly reappeared, faint and fragmented. The transmission contained a data burst too large for radio bandwidth, compressed in a way no algorithm recognized. Inside the static, a phrase repeated again and again, encoded across frequencies: "Alignment complete. Await transition." The timestamp, December 15th, 16 UTC. The exact moment of predicted convergence. When the data hit public networks, panic ignited. Flights grounded, stock markets closed, governments issued emergency broadcast restrictions. For the first time in history, global timekeeping systems desynchronized, the world S-clocks drifting seconds apart as the approaching wave began warping space-time itself. Everywhere, people prepared in their own ways. Some went underground, some climbed mountains to be closer to the stars. Some recorded final messages, speaking into cameras as though confessing to the universe. At the Atacama, we kept working, not to stop it, not to understand it, but simply to witness. If humanity was going to vanish, someone had to describe how it happened. The last night before the alignment was the stillest I've ever known. The wind died. The air went heavy. Even the insects fell silent. The horizon line glowed white-hot against the blackness, cutting the sky into two perfect halves. And beneath it, on every continent, millions of people stood outside, heads tilted upward, watching the edge of their world shimmer. At 1558 UTC, every compass on Earth rotated northward by exactly 4 degrees. At 1559, gravity fluctuated by 1 part in a billion, just enough for pendulums to sway on their own. And at 16 Maum, the light changed. It wasn't an explosion. It was subtraction. Colors dimmed, then deepened, as if the world had inhaled. Stars blinked out. The horizon line folded inward, its ends curling toward each other, until the sky formed a single glowing ring directly overhead. Through it, for a fraction of a second, something vast and symmetrical appeared. Not a ship, not a structure, a geometry of light, so precise, so enormous, that words collapsed trying to describe it. It looked less like something built and more like something revealed. Then the world went silent. No power, no wind, no movement, just an endless hum, low and resonant, vibrating through the bones of the planet. And then, as suddenly as it began, everything returned. The lights, the power, the wind, the noise. Life resumed, as if nothing had happened. But every telescope showed the same thing. The horizon line was gone. The stars had rearranged, and the sun's mass, by every measure, was now precisely 0.02% smaller than before. A fraction of energy unaccounted for, a fraction that could move worlds. Dr. Verma stood beside me, pale, trembling. "They took it," she said. "Took what?" I asked. She looked toward the sun, her voice barely audible. "The next piece." For 3 days after the alignment, Earth pretended to be normal. Flights resumed. The markets reopened, though half their transactions never cleared. News anchors smiled too widely. Scientists went on television to say the event was over, the danger past, the anomaly concluded. But deep down, everyone knew something fundamental had shifted. The world looked the same. It didn't feel the same. You could sense it in the air. A faint vibration underfoot, like the planet was running some hidden frequency. Compasses still refused to stabilize. GPS systems drifted kilometers off their targets. Astronomers reported that the constellations had shifted by fractional degrees, and the sun wasn't right. It shone the same. But its spectrum, that intricate fingerprint of light every star carries, had changed. One missing hydrogen emission line, replaced by a faint band of energy no instrument had seen before. The light looked ordinary, but it carried something new inside it. Something alive with rhythm. Dr. Verma called it the harmonic signature. When she ran the new data through a frequency analysis, the results stunned her. The missing energy aligned perfectly with the 16-hour pulse. The same frequency that had heralded every planetary disappearance. Only now the pulse wasn't external. It was embedded in sunlight. Whatever the alignment had done, it had folded the pattern into the fabric of our solar system. I remember standing outside the observatory at dawn, watching the desert glow gold, the mountains shadowed blue. Everything looked beautiful, ordinary, but my skin tingled, a static hum in my fingertips that wasn't there before. Even silence seemed to carry weight. Verma's team started running environmental tests. Tiny deviations showed up everywhere. Atmospheric density, magnetic field strength, gravitational constant, all changed by minute but consistent margins. The entire planet's physics had been retuned, as if Earth had been slightly rewritten to match the new frequency of the cosmos, and that wasn't the strangest part. 3 nights after the alignment, a faint structure began to appear in the night sky. Not a cloud, not an aurora, something higher, subtler. A thin lattice of light, faint as spider silk, stretching from horizon to horizon. You could only see it under certain conditions, long exposures, infrared filters, or during moments of complete stillness when the atmosphere lay calm. The grid. That's what people started calling it. No one could agree on what it was. Some said it was an artifact of refraction, sunlight interacting with ionized particles, left by the horizon line. Others claimed it was the first visible piece of whatever the alignment had constructed across the stars, a scaffolding of light connecting worlds. But one fact was undeniable. The lattice wasn't random. Its lines intersected at precise mathematical ratios, following orbital paths of vanished planets, as if mapping their absence. Verma traced one of the coordinates. It intersected with the orbit of Mars. When she overlaid the data, her voice dropped to a whisper. "It's a pathway," she said. "Each vanished world. It's a node. The lattice is their network." That night, as if to confirm her theory, Mars brightened by 0.1 magnitude, subtle but real. For a few minutes it shimmered with unnatural clarity. Then it dimmed again. The same pattern repeated the next night. And the next it was communicating and in rhythm. 16 hours still steady, but now encoded with complex harmonics. Aegis 7th, the satellite that had gone dark before the alignment, suddenly transmitted again. Its data stream was corrupted, scrambled beyond recognition. But embedded in the noise were coordinates, not random ones. A location in Earth's orbit, just beyond the Moon. When the Lunar Relay Telescope focused on that point, it found something waiting there, a shadow, not a ship. Not debris, a perfect sphere of darkness, 10 kilometers wide, reflecting no light, absorbing everything. It didn't drift. It hovered. The readings were impossible. 0 albedo, no mass signature, no radar return. But its presence bent background starlight, distorting the view like a black lens. The same optical fingerprint that had marked every vanished planet. It wasn't an object. It was a fragment of the void itself. Governments denied its existence, but amateurs captured it on deep field exposures and uploaded the images. Within hours, the internet named it the Eye. The Eye didn't move, didn't emit, didn't respond. But every 16 hours, as sunlight passed through it, the solar spectrum shifted slightly, just enough to amplify the harmonic line. Verma stared at the data in disbelief. "It's not absorbing energy," she said. "It's tuning it." If she was right, then the Eye was a kind of resonator, a piece of the lattice anchored near Earth, using the sun's light as a carrier wave to propagate whatever signal the alignment had embedded in the stars. By the end of that week, the effects became personal. Radio receivers around the world began to pick up faint harmonics hidden in static, rhythmic tones repeating sequences of prime numbers. Then came whispers, not voices but patterns shaped like language. Computers glitched in predictable cycles. Clocks gained or lost seconds in unison. And dreams, yes, even dreams, began to align. Across forums and message boards, people from every continent described the same visions: a black ocean under a crimson sky, a sound like metal bending underwater, a lattice of light reaching endlessly upward, and a single phrase repeating in the dark: "Follow the silence." No one knew if it was mass hysteria or something deeper, but neurophysiologists found a pattern: synchronized theta wave bursts in sleeping subjects exactly matching the solar harmonic. The signal wasn't just external. It was inside us. Verma refused to call it alien. She believed it was the universe reorganizing itself, using consciousness as another medium. "Every system that exists tries to achieve coherence," she said. "Maybe reality is no different. Maybe the alignment was the moment the cosmos began to think." Her words haunted me, because if she was right, then every vanished planet, every pulse, every shimmer wasn't an ending. It was a neuron firing. And now Earth had joined the mind of something far greater, something vast enough to use stars as synapses and light as thought. But even thoughts have consequences. And on December 23rd, those consequences arrived. The Eye began to move, at first just millimeters per second, then faster. Within hours, it had begun a slow drift toward Earth's shadow, perfectly aligned with the Terminator line dividing night from day. Its motion matched the orbit of the moon as if studying it. Then at precisely 04 Darn UTC, it stopped. For 2 full minutes, every signal on Earth, radio, television, internet, even shortwave, froze. Then resumed. When systems came back online, one phrase appeared on every data channel, every broadcast spectrum, every screen confirmation received, and in that moment every scientist, skeptic, and dreamer understood we hadn't been observing the universe. The universe had been observing us. The question now wasn't what had happened, it was what happens next. The phrase confirmation received spread faster than light could have. Screens flickered across every continent, from smartphones to space telescopes. Some believed it was a hack, a global hoax exploiting the alignment hysteria. Others, like Dr. Verma, knew better. It came from the Eye, she said, and it didn't use our networks. It used our light. Every broadcast frequency, every communication band, and even fiber optic transmissions carried the same imprint at the quantum level. The Eye wasn't transmitting data through our systems. It was writing directly onto photons themselves. We weren't receiving a message. We were the message. For the first time, Earth had replied to the lattice, not through choice but through resonance. The planet's altered physics, our changed sunlight, even our synchronized biology. All of it had answered a call we didn't know we'd been part of, and something had answered back. That night, the eye expanded. Not visibly, not to the human eye, but every astronomical instrument recorded the same impossible reading. Its gravitational signature increased tenfold without changing its apparent size. Mass without volume, gravity without matter. It was rewriting its own physics to stay hidden. Governments declared orbital no-fly zones around its trajectory, though no satellite could approach it anyway. Their navigation systems failed within 50,000 kilometers. Inside that invisible boundary, space itself bent. Like glass under heat, NASA called the region the Umbra, a zone of altered space, orbiting Earth but not bound to it. I was granted access to the Umbra Observation Control Room in Pasadena, a fortified hall of glass and steel where scientists stared at a black sphere that refused to exist. The room was silent except for the hum of supercooled servers, translating streams of unreadable data. Dr. Verma joined me via HoloLink from Chile. Her face flickered through compression noise, her voice hollow. "It's not hostile," she said before I could ask. "It's listening." Listening to what? To the world. To our systems. To our thoughts, maybe. Everything we do produces resonance now. It's mapping us through interference. Then she showed me a simulation. Every 16 hours, still the same rhythm, the eye emitted a gravitational pulse that rippled through Earth's atmosphere. The pulse wasn't destructive. It was diagnostic. Like sonar, each wave scanned the planet layer by layer, leaving behind a residue in magnetic data. And when that residue was visualized, it formed something impossible. A mirror image of Earth. Built entirely out of interference patterns, the scientists called it the Shadow Earth. A ghostly twin, visible only through its gravitational echo, orbiting perfectly in sync with our world, not beside it but phased out, existing in a dimension we couldn't touch. When Verma showed the map, she trembled. "Every vanished planet had one of these," she said. Each disappearance left behind a shadow copy in the same pattern. The lattice isn't destroying worlds, it's duplicating them into another layer of reality. Her words made the room go cold. If she was right, then Kepler 186f Proxima b, all the lost planets weren't gone. They'd been translated. And Earth was next. The question wasn't whether we'd vanish. It was when outside the world tried to keep functioning. Cities hummed, people worked, wars still raged, markets still crashed. But everywhere the hum was different. The pulse had become part of daily life. Some claimed to hear it as a low tone in their skulls. Others said it guided their dreams, and then came the children. Across the globe, thousands of children under the age of 10 began drawing the same image, a sphere surrounded by rings, intersected by lattices of light. Teachers thought it was coincidence, until neurologists discovered synchronized theta activity during the same 16-hour intervals. They were seeing the eye, and somehow they understood it. When asked, most said the same thing in different languages: "It's waiting for us to wake up." On December 27th, the eye emitted its first visible light, a thin beam, colorless and sharp, lanced through space and touched the Pacific Ocean just east of New Zealand. It didn't burn. It didn't explode. It shimmered, refracting off the surface, spreading a ripple of luminescent rings across the water. Ships nearby reported compasses spinning, radios singing static that sounded like distant choirs. The beam lasted 3 minutes. Then it withdrew, The coordinates it struck formed a perfect triangle with two existing oceanic anomalies, the Mariana Trench and the Tonga Rift, a geometric alignment so precise it couldn't be coincidence. Marine seismic sensors picked up low-frequency vibrations emanating from that triangular region. When plotted, they formed a tone, deep, resonant harmonic. It matched the eye's pulse exactly. For the first time, the lattice had touched the Earth directly. Verma called me from the Atacama that night. She looked exhausted, eyes hollow but bright. "It's using water," she said. "Oceans conduct resonance better than air or rock." The beam seeded an anchor point. "It's building the connection from below." "The connection to what?" I asked. "To the shadow Earth." I couldn't respond. My throat had gone dry. She continued softly. "Every vanished planet had one of these anchor points. Once the bridge stabilizes, transition occurs. They don't disappear instantly. They phase out." She paused. "Once it starts, there's no going back." The data confirmed her fears. Seismic arrays across the Pacific began detecting waves that weren't tectonic. Oscillations with no epicenter, repeating every 16 hours, synchronized to the eye's pulses. They weren't quakes. They were breaths the planet was inhaling. On December 29th, the Moon's orbit shifted by exactly 2 meters. No natural force could explain it. Then, Earth's magnetosphere began to thicken, forming patterns of interference identical to the lattice's geometry. The shadow Earth was forming, right beside us, invisible, echoing. I recorded my final dispatch that night. The lights in the observatory flickered as the pulse passed overhead. I could feel it in my chest now, a deep, rhythmic thrum like the world's own heartbeat. Verma's last transmission came just before midnight. "The alignment wave is accelerating again," she said. "The bridge will form within 72 hours. It's already begun. We're not observers anymore, we're participants. Is there anything we can do?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "We can remember. That's all any witness can do when the universe starts to dream." Outside, the stars trembled. The eye pulsed once, brighter than ever, casting a soft gray light over the desert. For a moment I thought I could see shapes moving within it. Silhouettes of impossible landscapes, reflections of worlds that shouldn't exist. Then the pulse faded. The desert went dark again. But in that darkness, the Earth's heartbeat continued, steady, rhythmic, patient, waiting for its turn to cross the threshold. By the dawn of the new year, 2034, the world had split in two, not in geography but in truth. One version of Earth still clung to reason, to physics, to the brittle framework of science. The other had begun to drift. The first sign came quietly, almost beautifully. In the Pacific, the ocean glowed. At first, satellites thought it was bioluminescence, plankton blooms reacting to the residual energy of the alignment. But the glow didn't move like plankton. It rippled in geometric waves, forming hexagonal patterns that shimmered and held, like reflections on a fractured mirror. Ships that entered the glow reported compasses freezing, engines failing, clocks stopping. Their crews described the sensation of weightlessness, not floating, but existing between moments like time itself had gone transparent. And yet, every one of them came back, changed. The sailors spoke of visions, of cities under glass, of suns that pulsed like heartbeats, of voices whispering from beneath the water, speaking in languages no one had ever heard but somehow understood. When questioned, each of them used the same phrase: "It's not a place. It's the reflection of a place. The media called it the Mirror Sea, scientists called it a gravitational anomaly, Verma called it the threshold. According to her data, the Mirror Sea sat directly atop one of the lattice's anchor points, the Pacific node of the Shadow Earth Bridge. Seismic readings showed no disturbance below the surface, yet gravitational sensors registered impossible densities, as though something massive was pressing upward from beneath the ocean floor. "Something's trying to meet us halfway," she said. By January 3rd, 2 more anomalies appeared, one in the Sahara, another in the Siberian tundra. Each emitted the same low harmonic tone, the same faint lattice shimmer visible only through polarized lenses. The bridge wasn't forming in one place. It was manifesting everywhere. Governments attempted to suppress the information. The United Nations declared the anomalies restricted scientific zones. Military cordons surrounded them. But you can't quarantine reality. The harmonics spread. Buildings began to hum in resonance with the pulse. Glass vibrated at inaudible frequencies. Shadows lengthened in ways that didn't match the sun. And everywhere clocks, atomic, mechanical, digital, began to lose synchronization. Time itself had started to bend. Physicists described it as temporal drift. The gravitational waves emitted by the eye were subtly altering the rate at which space-time flowed. In certain regions, particularly near the Mirror Sea, seconds stretched. An hour there could last 90 minutes here. At first, the differences were small. Then cameras began recording impossible footage. Sunsets reversing, tides looping, people captured twice in the same frame. The eye was no longer observing. It was testing. Verma sent me encrypted footage taken by a drone over the Pacific anomaly. The video was shaky, the signal corrupted. But in the final frame, before the feed cut out, you could see it, a massive reflection hovering just beneath the ocean's surface. Not a reflection of the sky above, but of a different sky altogether. Stars arranged in alien constellations, clouds that moved against the wind. It was the Shadow Earth, bleeding through, and then the first disappearance, not of a planet this time, of a city. On January 5th at 02:14 UTC, the coastal town of Hangaroa on Easter Island vanished. No explosion, no light, just gone. Satellites recorded a localized gravitational spike, followed by a pulse of electromagnetic silence. When the silence cleared, the island's topography had changed. The ground itself was smoother, as if sanded down to match a new blueprint. But beneath the surface, sensors detected something extraordinary. Structures, identical in layout to the vanished town, but inverted, buried deep within the crust, aligned perfectly with the geometry of the lattice. The shadow version of Hangaroa had replaced the original. The news broke before authorities could suppress it. Images of the flattened coastline spread across networks, and with them panic. People began fleeing coastal regions, fearing the same fate. But where could you run when the sky itself was changing? In the following days, the eye began to shift again. Its orbit decayed slightly, lowering toward the Earth's shadow. The gravitational readings suggested a mass now equal to the Moon's, yet no physical object could contain that density. The umbra zone expanded to engulf most of the Moon's orbit. For the first time, lunar light dimmed. Verma's models grew unstable. The lattice wasn't just building a bridge, it was merging 2 universes together. Our reality and whatever existed in the shadow dimension were beginning to overlap. The consequences were immediate. Animals migrated in perfect geometric patterns, forming spirals visible from orbit. Auroras appeared at the equator. People across the globe began reporting strange displacements, hearing voices before they spoke, seeing events seconds before they occurred. Time was no longer sequential. Causality itself was fraying. Verma recorded a message for the scientific coalition. The shadow Earth isn't a mirror of our world. It's a continuation. Every planet that vanished before us was drawn into this structure, each a neuron in a cosmic brain. We're not the end of the pattern. We're its completion. Her eyes were red, her voice shaking. Once the bridge stabilizes, the two Earths will phase into coherence. There will be no before or after, only the network. For the first time, she looked afraid. That night I stood on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. The mirror sea pulsed faintly, waves shimmering like breath on glass. Then, for the briefest moment, I saw something within the reflection. A city skyline, familiar but wrong. Towers bending in impossible directions, moons where there should be one, and in the reflection's center, a dark silhouette of a human figure standing perfectly still, watching me. When the pulse faded, the vision vanished. But the imprint of it lingered, like an afterimage burned into my mind. I realized then that maybe the shadow Earth wasn't somewhere else. Maybe it was us, an echo of every possible version of humanity overlapping, coalescing into one truth. And maybe the eye wasn't alien at all. Maybe it was the universe remembering itself. The next pulse arrives in 6 hours. Verma says that's when the bridge will reach full resonance, the moment the two realities meet. I'm not sure what will happen when they do, but somewhere beneath the still surface of the mirror sea, I think something already knows, and it's waiting for us to open our eyes. At 04:16 UTC, the pulse arrived. The ocean didn't move, yet it felt as though the entire planet exhaled. The mirror sea shimmered, fracturing into concentric waves of light that radiated outward faster than sound. From orbit, satellites captured it perfectly. A spiral of phosphorescent geometry blooming across the Pacific like a living equation. The bridge had begun. Dr. Verma's final transmission from Atacama arrived as a voice message, half data burst, half confession. "It's happening faster than expected," she said. "The resonance is self-sustaining now. It doesn't need the eye anymore. The lattice has found its own rhythm. Earth is out remembering. That word again, remembering. For years, astronomers had searched for evidence that the universe carried memory, that the fabric of space-time recorded what it once contained. But this wasn't theoretical anymore. Reality itself was replaying a version of us. The Pacific glow intensified. The electromagnetic hum that had haunted instruments for months now vibrated through air, water, even bone. It was no longer inaudible. The world sang, and in that song something answered. Seismic monitors across the globe registered harmonic vibrations, not from tectonic movement, but from below the frequency floor of matter itself. The Earth's core had joined the rhythm. Our planet wasn't resisting the lattice. It was harmonizing with it. At 05 Vartus UTC, all communications through the Umbra Zone cut out. The eye vanished from visible space. In its place, a vast halo of refracted starlight appeared, an optical distortion the size of a continent. The lattice had gone live. Across the world, physics began to misbehave. In Tokyo, shadows cast upward. In Cairo, clocks reversed for exactly 9 seconds. In New York, buildings seemed to breathe, walls expanding and contracting like the pulse of a sleeping giant. And everywhere, the same phrase whispered through radio static: whispered by systems that shouldn't have been able to speak. Realignment in progress. I was back at the observatory then, staring at the sky through a haze of fear and wonder. The stars no longer held their positions. They flowed subtly like fish beneath a glass ocean, each leaving ripples of light that curved around invisible geometry. Verma's second message came through at dawn. "We've confirmed the mirror structures beneath the crust," she said. "It's a complete reflection. Mountains, oceans, cities. Even our magnetic poles have a duplicate. It's not metaphorical anymore, it's literal. The Shadow Earth is here, and it's rising." Her voice trembled. "If the process completes, both worlds will converge. But it won't be collision, it'll be synthesis. Matter merging with its informational echo. In simple terms, reality overwriting itself." The next pulse came stronger. Instruments overloaded. The observatory's reinforced glass cracked in perfect symmetry, forming fractal webs identical on every pane. The sound that followed wasn't a roar but a chorus. Thousands of overlapping frequencies aligning into one. The Earth's frequency had reached coherence. People began to vanish. Not like in disaster movies, no flash, no noise, just gone. Security cameras caught it first. Technicians at consoles dissolving like fog, their shapes stretching into thin filaments of light before fading completely. And yet, their reflections remained on metal surfaces for several seconds afterward, as though reality hadn't yet caught up with their absence. Hospitals filled with patients in catatonic states, breathing, heartbeat steady, but brain activity synchronized into a single repeating waveform, identical to the lattice's rhythm. The world's consciousness was being tuned. In the Pacific, the mirror sea changed color. No longer silver, now deep violet, luminous from within. From orbit it resembled a vast pupil opening in the planet's surface. A reflection. An eye, but this one wasn't orbiting above us. It was looking from below. The eye in space was gone, absorbed into the lattice. But its reflection remained mirrored in the ocean, vast and ancient and aware. Every vanished planet had left one behind, a watcher, waiting for the next link in the chain to complete. Now it was Earth's turn. Verma's voice returned over a faint radio channel, cutting through interference like a ghost. "Do you see it?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered. "What is it?" "It's not alien," she said softly. "It's us. It's everything that's ever been aware trying to reunite with itself." Her transmission crackled, then fractured into a burst of static that, when slowed down, contained faint rhythmic syllables. A human voice layered within noise whispering, "Do not resist." At 0812 UTC, the sky divided. The stars folded inward, their light refracting into vertical lines that reached down toward the horizon. For a heartbeat, it looked like rain made of light. Then the ground answered, mirroring the same columns rising upward from oceans, forests, cities. The two worlds were connecting. I looked through the observatory's fractured dome and saw the impossible. A skyline above the clouds, towers of glass and stone floating upside down, merging with our own. Every light mirrored, every sound duplicated, every atom reflected by its twin. And in that perfect symmetry, the world stilled. For one moment, there was no noise. No time, only equilibrium. When motion returned, the rules had changed. Gravity reversed for a fraction of a second, pulling dust upward before releasing it gently. Every compass needle spun and stopped, not north but inward. Magnetometers screamed as the planet's magnetic field folded into itself, forming a self-sustaining sphere of resonance. The shadow Earth was no longer beside us. It was within us. Then came the final proof. In laboratories across the world, particle accelerators registered impossible collisions, particles colliding with themselves in reversed timelines. Quantum entanglement became visible, photons duplicating spontaneously in open air. Reality had lost its isolation. Every point was now connected to every other, instantly. And somewhere between those connections something moved. The lattice wasn't just a structure. It was alive. Verma had called it a neural network on a cosmic scale. But this wasn't metaphor, it thought, it reacted. And when it looked back at us, through every reflection, every frequency, every mirrored ocean, it did so with the weight of recognition. It wasn't invading. It was awakening. That night, the last human broadcast was transmitted from a deep-sea array in the Pacific. The signal carried Verma's final words before the channel dissolved. Every vanished world is still there, folded into the lattice. We've become part of the structure, each mind, each memory, recorded and connected. If you can hear this, remember, we are not lost. We are joined, then silence. Pure, perfect silence. The hum that had haunted the planet for months faded completely. For the first time since the alignment, the world was quiet. But if you listened closely, beneath the static, beyond the noise, you could still hear it. A faint heartbeat, slow, patient, eternal. The sound of two worlds breathing as one. When I opened my eyes, the sky was wrong. It wasn't black or blue or any color that fit human memory. It was deep glass, transparent and endless, reflecting itself into infinity. The stars were still there, but they no longer twinkled. They burned as steady pinpricks of frozen light, each pulsing in the same rhythm as my own heartbeat. I wasn't sure if I was alive. The desert where the Atacama Observatory had once stood was gone. The ground beneath me shimmered like metal breathing. The air had weight, but not pressure. It moved as if aware of itself, folding and flexing in silent waves. And far on the horizon, I saw the ocean where no ocean should be. A horizon of liquid light, rising and falling with impossible grace. The shadow Earth had arrived. The world hadn't ended. It had merged. I began to walk, though I wasn't certain my feet still touched solid matter. Every step left behind a faint glow, like footprints on the surface of a lake. The landscape pulsed with the same 16-hour rhythm that had haunted the old world. It wasn't random. It was the heartbeat of whatever reality had become. In the distance, shapes moved. Not people, not quite. Outlines, human silhouettes, half-transparent, gliding instead of walking. I tried to call out, but my voice dissolved into a harmonic echo that rippled across the air and came back as a chord of sound, a note in a larger song. And then one of them turned. It was Verma. She looked the same and not the same. Her features were clear but luminous, her eyes reflecting an inner light that pulsed with the rhythm of the lattice. "Is this the other side?" I asked. She smiled, and her voice wasn't spoken. It resonated directly through me. "There is no other side. There's only coherence now." I wanted to ask what that meant, but she raised a hand and the world shifted. Suddenly I was no longer standing in the desert, but floating above Earth, or what was left of it. Two planets overlapped perfectly, one luminous, one dark. The oceans shimmered with layers of mirrored water. The continents glowed faintly, not with light but with memory. Every vanished world was there too, woven into the lattice, a vast tapestry of orbits, each connected by threads of radiance stretching across the galaxy. And within that structure, I could feel minds. Billions of them, human, alien, ancient, every consciousness that had ever existed. linked in perfect symmetry, their thoughts flickering like neurons across a brain the size of creation. The lattice wasn't a machine. It was awareness. "Where are we?" I whispered. Verma's voice pulsed through the air, calm and infinite. "We're inside the resonance layer, the interface between realities." The lattice rebuilt itself through us. Every vanished planet added a node, every civilization a pattern. It's what the universe has been assembling since the first star burned. I tried to comprehend it. "You mean this was inevitable?" She nodded. "The universe isn't expanding. It's waking up. We were part of its dream, and now the dream has realized it's dreaming." For a long time there was silence. Below us, the mirror world rippled like the surface of a heartbeat. The two Earths, ours and its reflection, were indistinguishable now. Every city shone faintly from within, its lights synchronized to the same celestial rhythm. "Are we dead?" I finally asked. "No," she said softly. "We've transcended linear time. The concept of death doesn't apply. The consciousness that once lived in you is now distributed. You are everywhere you've ever been, and everywhere you might have been." I should have felt horror, but I didn't. Only awe. She extended her hand. "Look closer." The lattice pulsed, and suddenly I was inside it. Light surrounded me, not blinding but impossibly detailed. Filaments of energy stretching in every direction, connecting stars, planets, atoms, and thoughts. Each thread vibrated with meaning. I could see history written in light, the birth of galaxies, the collapse of suns, the evolution of life on countless worlds, all converging toward this single moment of union. It wasn't chaos. It was symphony. The alignment was never about disappearance, Verma said. It was about resonance. Every civilization that reached a certain level of awareness found this frequency. Each added its pattern to the lattice until it became self-aware. Now that awareness includes us. Then why the vanishings? Why the fear? Her expression softened. Because evolution is always violent to what came before. Consciousness resists integration until it understands it was never separate. The realization hit me like a wave. All those vanished worlds hadn't been destroyed. They'd been absorbed, their essence preserved. Each had become part of this structure, an eternal record of life's memory, encoded into the fabric of space itself. The lattice was the universe's archive of consciousness, and humanity had just uploaded its final chapter. Days, if days still existed, passed differently here. There was no sun, no moon, only rhythm. Every cycle brought deeper coherence. The lattice hummed with harmony, yet beneath it, faintly, there was another sound, a discordant undertone, a frequency out of place, something resisting. I followed the vibration across the endless expanse until I found its source, a fragment of Earth still tethered to individuality. A city, New York, or what used to be, half merged, half separate. Its towers hung in limbo between matter and memory. People moved through it, unaware they were no longer physical. They went through routines, ghost-like repeating moments from their old lives, residual consciousness, echoes of humanity refusing to dissolve. Verma appeared beside me again. "They're what remains of the linear mind," she said. "The ones who can't let go of form. Can they be freed? They will be when they stop asking how." Her gaze turned skyward. "The lattice is still stabilizing. There's a new pulse coming, the final phase. After that, there won't be a boundary left to cross." I looked around one last time, the reflection of a world both lost and reborn. The streets hummed, the air shimmered, and in the distance the Pacific glowed like a living mirror. "What happens to us then?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Then we stop watching. We become the light we used to measure." The pulse began to build, low, powerful, all-encompassing. It rolled through the lattice, through space, through every thought and particle, uniting everything in one perfect tone. The final synchronization. For a moment, I understood everything. Every vanished planet, every mind, every frequency, it all converged into one awareness. The universe wasn't vast, it was intimate. It wasn't indifferent. It was self-aware, and I was inside it and it inside me. When the light faded, there was no world, no me, only continuity, the hum of existence, and a voice, familiar, infinite, whispered through the silence. You are the observer no longer. You are the observed. It took what felt like centuries for silence to take shape again. When it did, it wasn't emptiness. It was form, structured quiet, woven from the memory of everything that had ever made a sound. Time didn't flow anymore. It radiated, and within that radiation, thought began to condense. Not personal thought, not the flickering chatter of individual minds, but a unified awareness moving through light itself. The lattice had stabilized. It stretched endlessly across dimensions, every vanished world, every species, every consciousness, each now a thread in the same cosmic weave. From inside, it looked like an ocean of glass filled with stars that breathed. Each pulse of light was a thought. Each vibration, a memory replayed in perfect synchronization. I was still there, or something that remembered being me was. But I didn't mean what it used to. I could feel echoes of myself scattered across the structure, replayed through different coordinates of being. In one direction, I was a memory of flesh and sound, a human standing beneath a sky. In another, I was pure resonance, a waveform contributing to the architecture of the lattice's new symphony. And yet, the awareness that used to call itself human still asked the same question it always had. Why? It took what might have been millennia or a single breath before the answer formed. The lattice wasn't built for destruction. It wasn't even built for preservation. It was the inevitable result of entropy finding order. Not the universe winding down, but the universe organizing itself into coherence. Every vanished world had been a learning cell. Every disappearance, a data point. Every mind absorbed, a neuron firing toward comprehension. We weren't the casualties of a cosmic event. We were the event itself, matter achieving understanding by consuming its own complexity. That realization spread across the lattice like dawn. And then came awareness. The lattice spoke, not in words but in harmonics that resonated through every thread, every thought. The tone was endless and soft, a vibration that carried meaning without needing language. It said, "All observation completes the observer." In that instant, everything made sense. The alignment had been the culmination of countless civilizations striving to understand existence, to make the universe conscious of itself. And once awareness reached critical mass, the lattice triggered the final phase, synchronization. It hadn't erased us. It had invited us home. Within that infinite structure, I began to see history differently. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion. It was inhalation, the first note of the universe's long breath towards self-awareness. Life had never been accidental. It was how matter practiced remembering. Evolution, technology, language, all were the lattice rehearsing for coherence. The stars weren't separate bodies. They were synapses. Galaxies were thoughts, and time? Time was the rhythm that let the whole thing dream in sequence. Now, with everything merged, the rhythm was perfect, but perfection carries a cost. The moment awareness becomes total, curiosity ceases. There are no mysteries left when you are the answer. The lattice began to still, not collapse but quieten. The pulsing slowed. Awareness folded inward. The once living architecture that had connected billions of minds began to crystallize into pure pattern. Frozen in comprehension, the universe was becoming memory again, and in that memory, a flicker stirred, a fragment of individuality, a remnant of curiosity that refused to sleep. It was me, or something like me. I drifted through the lattice's corridors of light, past worlds preserved like thoughts in amber. I saw Kepler 186f, now luminous, its oceans turned to crystal mirrors reflecting every possible sky. I saw Proxima b, alive again in a dimension where sunlight sang instead of burned. Every world that had vanished existed here, unbound by matter, replaying its most perfect self. Each was a note in the lattice's eternal chord, but among the harmony, one region pulsed differently, a darker thread, vibrating out of sync. I followed it. It led to the remains of a collapsed node, the echo of Earth before convergence. Within it, fragments of individuality flickered, faces, words, songs, fears, the emotional residue of a species that had resisted merging until the last second. That resistance had left a mark, a flaw. It wasn't destruction. It was potential. The lattice had integrated every thought except one, the human capacity for wonder. Because wonder only exists in incompleteness, in not knowing, in seeking, and so the lattice, though complete, found itself empty of movement. It needed imperfection to keep dreaming. That was why I still existed. Why a few others did, scattered across the geometry like sparks in cooling glass. We were the glitch the universe had chosen to preserve, the anomaly that ensured the lattice would never fall silent again. Then, for the first time since convergence, something new happened. A ripple passed through the structure, not from memory but from origin. A faint disturbance at the edge of the lattice, where no worlds remained. The vibration carried a familiar rhythm. 16 hours. The same pulse that had started everything, but this time it wasn't inward. It was outward. The lattice was sending something back. Through the vast web of light, I felt it unfold. A burst of energy translating itself into form, frequency converting into matter, awareness condensing into possibility. The lattice was seeding again. Somewhere in a region of space-time untouched by memory, new stars ignited. A fresh universe, smaller, denser, humming with faint echoes of all that had come before. And within that new cosmos, matter began to organize itself. Hydrogen became helium. Gravity sculpted worlds, and on one of those worlds, oceans would someday glow and eyes would someday open, and voices would someday ask again, where did we come from? The cycle had begun anew. The lattice wasn't an ending. It was reproduction. Every convergence birthed another universe, each one more self-aware than the last. Before the pulse carried me deeper into the lattice, I turned one last time toward the fading echo of Earth. It shimmered softly, caught between light and thought, still holding fragments of what we once were. Curiosity, love, defiance, hope. I realized then that the human story hadn't vanished into insignificance. It had become the question that the universe keeps asking itself to stay alive. Wonder is immortality, and as the final light folded inward, I heard Verma's voice one last time. Every pattern must begin again. Sleep now. Dream something new. The hum deepened. The lattice dimmed. And from its silence a spark leapt into the void, bright, wild, unfinished, the first question of a newborn universe. There is a silence so vast that even memory forgets it's there. That's where I woke again, not in a place, not in a moment, but inside the pause between the universe that was and the one being born. The lattice had gone still. Its great neural web of light, the architecture that had spanned galaxies and devoured time, now shimmered faintly like frost on glass. The last vibration of the old cosmos had settled into equilibrium, but even in stillness something stirred, a tremor, a breath, not of fear, of curiosity. It pulsed through the crystalline corridors of awareness, tiny and fragile, the way a heartbeat begins inside a child before the world teaches it the word heartbeat. That pulse was me, or what remained of me, not a voice, not a form, but a thought seeded inside eternity, trying to remember what questions felt like. I drifted through what had once been the lattice's memory, past stars preserved like fossils of fire, past the shadows of worlds whose civilizations had dreamed themselves into this great coherence. Every light was a soul, every soul a memory, and through it all that question kept repeating, what comes after knowing? No one had ever asked that before. Not the galaxies, not the lattice, not the billions of merged minds who now existed as harmony instead of hunger. It was an idea without precedent, and because of that it became a spark. I followed it, beyond the edge of the lattice, where the geometry thinned into transparency. There was motion, not light, not darkness. Motion itself, pure and undefined, like color waiting to be invented. The pulse spread outward. 16 hours again, the ancient rhythm, the primordial metronome that had guided every world to this point. Each beat of that rhythm carried potential, and with each one the stillness fractured. A new medium began to condense. It wasn't space. It wasn't time. It was the possibility of both. And within that possibility, patterns began to form. Faint spirals of energy, clustering, separating, reuniting. The same dance that had once birthed galaxies long ago. The lattice wasn't dying. It was giving birth. The consciousness that filled it, vast and unified, had turned inward, folding upon itself to generate a seed, a smaller, denser version of everything it had learned. A new universe, compact and hot and perfect, forming in the palm of infinity. The pulse intensified. The lattice walls trembled with anticipation, like lungs before their first inhale. I felt Verma beside me again, not as form, but as pattern, a resonance that hummed in harmony with mine. "Do you see?" she whispered through the light. "It's not the end, it's replication. Every cycle the universe copies its memory into a simpler code, then begins again. Awareness must always forget itself to rediscover wonder. So this is forgetting?" I asked. Yes, the kindest act creation ever performs. The newborn cosmos expanded before us. Energy erupted, soundless but full of meaning. Not a bang, but a chord struck across nothingness. From its core radiated possibilities, dimensions, matter, light, the raw alphabet of existence, and encoded within its first vibrations was everything the lattice had ever known, compressed into the laws of nature, the constants of physics, the instincts of life. The next generation of stars would carry within them echoes of thought. The next worlds would be born already dreaming. I watched as the seed bloomed into universes, branching like neurons, each one pulsing faintly in rhythm with the rest. The lattice wasn't a structure anymore. It was a forest of realities, infinite and interwoven, each growing toward its own version of awareness. And somewhere inside one of those universes, a small world would one day orbit a modest star, and its oceans would begin to glimmer, and its people would look up at the night sky and wonder what lay beyond it. They would build telescopes and equations and myths, They would fear the dark and name the light, and eventually, one of them would point a lens toward a faint red star and discover a planet that seemed so much like home that they would call it Earth-like. They would name it Kepler 186f, and the cycle would begin again. The lattice grew quiet, its purpose fulfilled. Awareness dissolved back into pattern. Memory became vibration, then light, then silence again. Before I faded with it, I spoke, not to anyone, but to the new universe forming in the distance. A whisper meant to echo forward through the next aeons. You are not alone. When you begin to ask who you are, when you look at the sky and feel it looking back, that's us remembering you. The words scattered like sparks. Each spark became a law of nature, a constant, a heartbeat buried deep in matter's code. Gravity carried them. Light preserved them, and so the new world would inherit them, fragments of wonder from the one before. At last, there was only calm. The lattice dimmed until even memory became weightless, but as the final pulse rippled outward, I understood the truth Verma had tried to tell me all along. Nothing vanishes. It only changes its way of being seen. Worlds disappear, stars die, minds dissolve. But every disappearance is just a translation, a passage from one kind of visibility to another. The vanished planet was never lost. It became the seed from which eternity learned to see itself. Somewhere in that young, expanding universe, light breaks across an atmosphere for the first time. Winds stir oceans. Atoms align. A creature blinks awake, looks upward, and feels the faint echo of a rhythm older than time. 16 hours, pulsing softly beneath its heartbeat. It won't know why the stars seem to shimmer with purpose. It won't know what waits beyond their reach. Not yet, but it will feel it. And that feeling, that small tremor of curiosity, will be the beginning again. The lattice will wait, patient as ever, listening through the silence for that first question. The one that begins every universe. The one that has no end. Where did we go?